Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Speaking to thousands of enthusiastic patriots at Charlie Kirk's The People's Convention in Detroit, Michigan over the weekend, President Donald Trump encouraged his voters to write on restaurant receipts to spread the word of his proposed elimination of taxes on tips. During a speech lasting almost 1.5 hours on Saturday, President Trump promised, with the help of all of Americans, you and me, to fire Joe Biden and turn the country around. It was a very exciting day on Saturday. I'm glad that I was able to be there in support of Charlie Kirk, and just what a great job Turning Point does on these events. I mean, there were literally estimated 10,000 people in this Detroit Convention Center. I'm going to give you all the details. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is on the West Coast at a fundraiser with Barack Obama and appears to freeze up again. And literally, Barack Obama grabs him by the hand to lead him off the stage at this Megabucks LA fundraiser. We'll give you the details on that as well. And as Joe Biden continues to try to convince the American people that his economic policies are working, home foreclosures rose again during the month of May as we have the latest numbers as Americans continue to struggle with the ongoing cost of living crisis. The gunman who opened fire at a Michigan splash pad, wounding 9 people, including 2 small children, lived with his mother and suffered from mental health issues, according to authorities who said that he may have had future attacks planned. We have a lot to cover today. Your text messages are welcome, as are your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
What a great weekend I had. I traveled up to Detroit on Friday after Friday's show. Former President Donald Trump was scheduled to speak Saturday evening at the People's Convention. This was an event of Turning Point Action, which is the organization that my colleague Charlie Kirk has grown into this massive movement across America, primarily of younger people. But some of these events that Charlie is having now also include some of us old folks. And I noticed looking around the room on Saturday, there was a good combination of both. There were still primarily more young people than older people like me there, but there were a good many of older people there to show their support as well. Trump initially made a suggestion, about a week or so ago at a Las Vegas event that he repeated again on Saturday. And this is that there'd be no taxes on service workers' tips. So when you go to the restaurant to have a nice dinner and you tip that waiter or that waitress, President Trump has suggested that if he wins re-election in November, that he's going to eliminate those taxes. No more taxes on tips. The former president told the crowd, and again, he got a great response from the crowd, that as part of his plan for further tax cuts, he's going to eliminate taxes for all restaurant workers, hospitality workers, and anyone else who receives tips.
Cut taxes down from 49 for business, 49, much more than that when you add in state and local, down to 21%, and yet we took in more revenue at a much lower rate. Who would think that's even possible? But that's the way it works. I want to get it down still further, and especially for the middle-income people. We're going to get it down still further. That's why we had such great job production. Best job production in history. And as part of those tax cuts, I've announced that I will eliminate taxes on tips for restaurant workers, hospitality workers, and anyone else that gets tips. No more taxes on tips. You know how I did that? It wasn't really a lot of study, a lot of work. I've been hearing about it for years, how unfair it is. And Biden just passed a set of regulations that make it impossible for waitresses and people that get any people getting tips. He passed something that makes it impossible. But I've been hearing, and last week I was in Las Vegas at a beautiful building that I built and is great, the Trump Hotel. And I'm having, oh, you like it, I like it too. And I was having dinner with a group of people on the campaign, and the waitress came over. She was very nice, and I said, if you could have any wish, what would it be? She said, that we get rid of the taxes on tips, sir. They're so vicious. You know, they hired 88,000 IRS agents to go after people. And she said, it's so vicious what they do, and the new regulations passed by Biden are so vicious. And I said, wait a minute, I have an idea. We shouldn't have people pay tax on tips. Will I have your votes on that in the front row? Would that be good? We got 6 votes. We don't even need the votes. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it quick. No tax on tips, okay? It's done. Done.
Again, President Trump on Saturday in Detroit. Kid Rock shared a photo of a receipt from Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse, for which he left a $400 tip. The musician wrote, a vote for Trump is a vote for no taxes on tips. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene also shared a post on X showing a photo of her receipt for which she left a $120 tip, saying, vote Trump, no tax on tips. By the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene was at the event on Saturday and received a very enthusiastic welcome by the group at Turning Point Action at the People's Convention on Saturday. Trump told the crowd that restaurant workers, hotel workers, and caddies would mostly benefit, saying, I think it's going to be a great thing. You know, they earned it. Somebody does a good job is supposed to pay tax on it. So we're ending that immediately, effective immediately when we get in, he said. What do you think about this? Will you commit to writing a note on your receipts from this day forward when you're out at a restaurant having breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever? Or maybe it's another type of service that you receive and you give a tip. Are you willing to write on that receipt to vote for Donald Trump to end taxes on tips? I mean, this could make a difference. When, as we go into November, if this is a tight race in some areas, this could really make a difference to get some of these waiters and waitresses to start this movement. Some of Saturday's speakers at the event included Donald Trump Jr., Roger Stone, as I mentioned, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Representative Matt Gaetz was there, former Representatives Lee Zeldin, Tulsi Gabbard, Steve Bannon was there, Ben Carson was there. It was an interesting day because I was with my buddy Mike Gallagher, and we were set to, the two of us, do some podcasts together to record some segments for the Mike Gallagher Show, which you'll hear later today if you happen to catch the Mike Gallagher Show. So we got to the convention center on Saturday morning at our appointed time, and we had passes to get in at a special entrance for sponsors and VIP members who were there with the media. We got there, and there was a line to get in. And then someone suggested that there was an issue. So we waited a while, and I'm texting the folks that we're supposed to see inside of the center there when we learned that Secret Service had closed the building down. They weren't allowing anybody else to come in presently because they were doing their sweep. Well, they were doing the sweep, and that's pretty common. They do this prior to any event with President Donald Trump and Joe Biden as well. 2 hours later, actually a little over 2 hours later, a lot of people were getting testy. I mean, because as we were coming in, like I said, Representative Matt Gaetz, we saw him coming in. Mike Lindell of My Pillow was coming in. We were all waiting to try to get in. We later learned that what had happened was there were some union workers who worked at the convention center there in Detroit who had decided, well, the rules don't apply to us. And so they had entered in a backdoor entrance to the building. Secret Service found out about this. They made everyone leave and they started the sweep all over again. And that's why we had to wait another 2 hours, because they had to do it again. They just decided, well, the rules don't apply to us, so we'll just go in the back door. It was crazy. And again, people were getting a little bit testy. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Soon going to be 4 years ago that I started my journey with PhD weight loss and nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, I might add, and I've been able to maintain that for almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years coming up in July. If this is the year that you have decided that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to lose that weight, that visceral fat that's so damaging around your waist, then now's the time to start. Let me encourage you to make that call today. 864-252-4925. Set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutritionist. Boy, am I glad that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas 4 years ago, and that she got me on the right path to getting healthy. You're going to be able to do things that you may have thought you'd never be able to do again. Play with the kids, the grandkids, be able to hike and walk, and maybe play a full 18-round hole of golf and be able to do it and not get so winded. Because when you take that excess weight off, you're just going to feel better. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to sleep better. Your overall health is just going to be improved. 864-252-4925. Call, set up your initial consultation. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Unfortunately, home foreclosures rose again in May as Americans continue to struggle with the ongoing cost of living crisis. This, as the Biden administration wants us to believe that things are better. This is Joe Biden very enthusiastically in a L.A. fundraiser over the weekend with Barack Obama and other big donors with the Democrat Party, tried to convince everyone in the room that things have turned around, that we have the best economy that we've had in a few years, that he keeps talking about the job growth that he has produced, that his administration has produced. He never reminds you that when he took office that we had unemployment at record high because of a pandemic, because of COVID. This home foreclosure trend is very disturbing, though. According to a new report published by the real estate data provider Attom, ATTOM, found that there were 32,621 properties in May with foreclosure filings, which includes default notices, scheduled auctions, and bank repossessions. That marks a 3% increase from the prior year, although it's down some from the same time last year. Attom CEO Rob Barber said May's foreclosure activity highlights nuanced shifts in the housing market. While we observed a slight increase in foreclosure starts, the decline in completed foreclosures indicates resilience in certain areas. Nationwide, about 1 in every 4,320 housing units had a foreclosure filing in May, according to the report. But the problem was worse in other states. New Jersey experienced the highest rate of foreclosures last month, according to the report, with about 1 in every 1,939 homes receiving a foreclosure notice, more than double the national average. Things are a little worse also in Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, where registered foreclosure filings was 1 for every 2,595. Now, think about that for a minute. So the nationwide average is 1 in every 4,300 housing units. In Delaware, it's 1 in every 2,500. Again, almost double the rate. Homes also in Connecticut saw 1 in every 2,600. Florida got 1 in every 2,638. Fox Business says the problem could soon get worse as high home prices, steep mortgage rates, property taxes, and rising insurance premiums bite Americans. The rising insurance premiums is another concern because we have seen this trend going upwards as well. And in some cases, it's not a matter of, well, can I afford to pay that for insurance? It's a matter of, can I even get insurance? And that's true for some areas, particularly coastal areas. Florida has had a crisis for years with homeowners insurance when it is within a certain distance of the coast. You find that here in the Carolinas as well. The states have had to set up special insurance programs for wind and hail and damages, flooding. Of course, we've had the federal flood insurance program for decades because no insurance companies would write flood insurance on homes in areas where hurricanes frequently were affected the areas. Housing affordability, according to this report, is the worst it's been in decades, thanks to a spike in home prices and mortgage rates. Combined, the two have helped push the typical salary required nationwide for homeownership up to $106,500. This is a 61% increase from the $59,000 required just 4 years ago, folks. This is according to Zillow. So when Joe Biden says that we're better off today than we were before he took office, just remind yourself of that statistic, especially if you're a young family and you're looking to buy your first home. Think about that for a minute. $106,000 is what nationwide. Now, this is a nationwide average, okay? I get that. But $106,500 is the national average for the salary you need to make now to afford a home, compared to $59,000 just 4 years ago. That in itself should have Americans wanting to send Joe Biden back to Delaware permanently, never to return to Washington, D.C. Now, according to this report from Adam, again, that's an association, not a person, ATTOM, there are several reasons to blame for the affordability crisis. Number one, years of underbuilding has fueled a shortage of homes in the country, a problem that was later exacerbated by the rapid rise in mortgage rates and now expensive construction costs. Because if you've been to Lowe's lately to buy a 2x4 or a sheet of plywood, you understand about the construction costs. I would hate to be building a home right now. Available home supply is down 34.3% from the typical amount before the COVID pandemic began in early 2020, according to a separate report published by Realtor.com. So you add all this together and you have the perfect storm for a housing crisis. Higher mortgage rates over the past 3 years have also is created what is being called the golden handcuff effect in housing markets. Sellers who locked in a record low mortgage rate of 3% or less during the pandemic began to have reluctance to sell. Maybe it's the family who really wants a bigger home because they have another family member or two. But because of that great interest rate, they just can't afford to sell that home and move up into a bigger home that would better serve their family because they can't go from a 3% interest rate to a 7% interest rate. Economists predict that mortgage rates will probably remain at their current levels through 2024 and that they'll only begin to fall once the Federal Reserve starts cutting rates. And even then, rates are unlikely to return to the low seen during the pandemic for a number of years. But no, folks, Joe Biden wants you to think Bidenomics is working well. Bidenomics is great. The other problem that we don't have time to get into today, the cost of owning a home in the U.S. has skyrocketed as well since 2020, putting some American families out of reach of being able to, even if they could afford the home, number one, and they could afford the interest rate, they couldn't afford to maintain the cost of the house to maintain it. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, Joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen. When it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com.
And by this time next year, inflation will be in full retreat. Our economy will be roaring back. Optimism will be surging. American pride will be soaring. The American dream will be thriving again for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. Law and justice will reign all throughout our land. Freedom will be restored. The flame of liberty will be burning bright. Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country, will be a fading, horrible memory of the past. And our great silent majority and the once forgotten men and women of our country will be the ones shaping America's magnificent future when I am the 47th president of the United States. Because we are all Americans, and together we will show November 5th to be the most important day in the history of America. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America free again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Michigan. God bless you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Another excerpt of the fantastic speech that President Donald Trump gave on Saturday in Detroit at Charlie Kirk's, the People's Convention. And again, estimated 10,000 people at the convention. As my understanding, there were about 8,000 or so within the convention center. And then there were thousands in other areas outside of the convention center who were having to watch it on a monitor just simply because the convention center only had a certain capacity. It was a great event. It really, it's easy to get discouraged sometimes as we look at what the Democrats are doing. And to hear Joe Biden as he parades around the country and we're all just frightened that the American people will fall for it again. But when you can sit in a room and you can talk with people like I had the chance to do on Saturday in Detroit, you really do have hope. There's hope for us winning in November, and we saw that just throughout the day as we were talking with different people. And you saw that, first off, that people would spend the weekend, that they would travel to Detroit to spend the weekend for Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Action, his organization, that they would take their time and they'd spend their money, because it wasn't inexpensive to go. To go to an event like this, simply because they're concerned about the future of our country, simply because they know that we have to win in November. So that's encouraging in itself. But then to speak with people like Rebecca Weber, whose family, her dad started AMAC, the Association of Mature Americans. They were the primary sponsor, the title sponsor of this event. Mike Lindell was there of MyPillow. Steve Bannon. Again, there was a long list of speakers. Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Dr. Ben Carson. And they were all very enthusiastic. They were all very hopeful that we can turn this country around come November. Meanwhile, as you had that happening in Detroit, Joe Biden is in Los Angeles at a Megabucks LA fundraiser with Barack Obama. And he had another one of his moments. Widely reported that Biden appeared to freeze up on stage and had to be led off by Barack Obama at the conclusion of this, what they called a star-studded campaign fundraiser. It was an awkward moment, as we have seen a number of these take place over the past few months. It was after Biden and Barack Obama had sat for 45 minutes. It was sort of an interview type thing. It was hosted by late night star Jimmy Kimmel at the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles. As Joe Biden and Barack Obama stood, and there was wide applause, Biden went into that. He had that funny looking gaze in his eyes. He seemed to become fixed on the crowd and just kind of stood there and stared at them like deer in the headlights until former President Barack Obama sort of gently took his wrist and led him off stage. The incident follows, of course, a number of caught-on-camera moments where Biden has appeared to be dazed, confused, including last week when he appeared to wander off at the G7 summit in Italy during the parachute exhibition. Did you get a chance to watch that video? That was scary to see our commander-in-chief having to be pulled back over to the event by the Italian prime minister. The prime minister stepped in to gently take Biden's hand and lead him back in time for the group photo of other world leaders. I mean, it's like a child. You see this happen when you're going to have a family portrait and you have the 7-year-old who just wanders off out of the camera shot. Well, that's what we saw with Joe Biden last week, until you had the prime minister of Italy grab his hand and pull him back into the shot. Now, back to Los Angeles past weekend. The Biden campaign reportedly raised $30 million at the event. It was attended by Hollywood luminaries like George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Barbara Streisand. The event was also, according to media reports, swarmed by hundreds of anti-Israel protesters who actually attempted to block the entry to this very ritzy gala. Tickets cost anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. Now, that's a pretty wide array, isn't it? $250,000 to $500,000. That's a good mixture of people for someone who can write a check for $250, but yet there's someone in the audience who also could write a check for $500,000. Dozens of police in riot gear were seen forming a line outside of the theater to prevent the protesters from advancing closer to the building. They were shouting, jeering, saying, "Biden, Biden, you're a liar. We demand a ceasefire. Biden, Biden, you're a liar. We demand a ceasefire." The group also waved Palestinian flags and chanted, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will live forever." This is a slight variation of the slogan that the Anti-Defamation League says calls for the eradication of Israel. No arrests were made, according to the LAPD. The $30 million amount of money raised, reportedly the most a Democrat candidate has ever raised in a single night, comes at a time, of course, when the Biden campaign is trying desperately to blunt the fundraising momentum of Donald Trump, who raised a record amount of money after his conviction in New York. Trump raised more than $50 million during an April fundraiser in Florida. He took in tens of millions again after his guilty plea. Biden and Obama, as well as First Lady Jill Biden, stirred up the crowd with a collection of common talking points that we've heard over and over again about how well the Biden administration is doing. The two hit Trump on everything from the January 6th Capitol riot to moving the Supreme Court to the right to threatening retaliation against his political adversaries. You know, they keep talking about moving the Supreme Court to the right. What do they expect a conservative president to do? If Joe Biden had the opportunity to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices, or if he had the opportunity during these past almost 4 years now, do you think he would not have purposely appointed liberal justices? He would have had to. So why do they keep bringing this up? Oh gosh, Donald Trump appointed conservative judges to the Supreme Court. Yes, he did, because that's what the American people elected him to do. And that's why I feel confident that we're going to send him back come November, and hopefully he'll get to appoint a few more in the next 4 years. Troubling polling for the Biden administration in recent weeks shows that Biden, as the incumbent, is lagging behind Trump in key states like Arizona, Nevada, and Florida. Particularly bad sign from the Marist College earlier this week shows that Trump has carved out a small lead even in Biden's boy home state of Pennsylvania, with a majority of registered voters saying that they were better off under the former president. It doesn't take a whole lot to realize this, does it? Just like I was talking about in the last segment of the foreclosure rate on homes these days. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Ray writes, well, Joey, the abortion pill is now legal. The pill has some very serious side effects and could be fatal. It seems that killing babies could have a high price to pay. I call that winning the Darwin Award. We must pray that people will wake up and celebrate life. Hope you had a good weekend. I did, Ray. Sure did. It was a busy one, but appreciate that text. Jennifer writes on the text line, I guess it's late to be texting you, but I just wanted to comment on how uplifting it was to see Republicans unite today when President Trump visited Washington. This is in respect to his meeting last week with House members and Senate members. We need unity in this country so very much, and in the clips that I saw, it was genuinely expressed as D.C. Republicans gathered to talk about the future with former President Trump, who continues to rise in the polls. It was all encouraging. It was encouraging. And again, I keep going back to how encouraged I was just to see almost 10,000 people in Detroit on Saturday gather around, come spend their weekend, spend their money, spend their time to come to Detroit to show their support of Donald Trump. That's encouraging as well, Jennifer. Tony writes, Joey, if the primaries are a future sign of voting, we're in trouble in November, but I'm still optimistic about November. Democrats went to great lengths to keep Trump out of the White House. Yeah, last week's primary returns were disappointing. That we had, I forget what the total statewide return was, but in some areas, less than 13% of people showed up to cast their ballot in the primary. That's why we have to keep talking. That's why this show is so important, for us to talk among ourselves, encourage one another, and get our people to the polls come November the 5th. Pete writes, hey, Joey, regarding District 3 primary, I volunteered to put a sign in my yard for a candidate. The response I got was, well, we will get one to you during the runoff. If you don't campaign in all the precincts, you should not expect to lose. I only saw 2 of the 7 candidates' yard signs. Well, some may not have had yard signs. I'm not sure. This, of course, talking about the 3rd Congressional District in South Carolina, where we are in a runoff now between Sherry Biggs and Pastor Mark Burns. Jordan writes, hey, Joey, long time. Just landed back in the U.S. from Israel. I haven't been back home in quite a while and figured it was time. I stayed 2 weeks in our family home in Tel Aviv, but listened to the podcast when possible. I sat with my grandmother, and we would listen together. Now, that warms my heart, Jordan, that you and your grandmother would listen to my podcast in Tel Aviv. He writes, they really enjoy the podcast and have subscribed to it because they like hearing the news where their grandchildren are. They soon hope to move here to the States. Just wanted to let you know that you have listeners in many different places other than the United States. Well, look, we need to build our listeners in Israel for sure. So thank you, Jordan, for that. And look, if you are grandmother, Jordan's grandmother, if you're listening today, we love you guys, and we're going to stand behind you. Don't let some of the distractions that you're hearing about of some of these nut cases around the U.S. who are protesting. We stand with Israel. Our country will be with you every step of the way. God bless you. Katrina says, hey, Joey, I agree 100% that the low voter turnout for Tuesday primaries was shameful. Ron and I worked the polls in Duncan. We didn't make 200 voters. We could see a subdivision of 100-plus houses from the parking lot of our poll location. Those residents alone could have made a major impact on our precinct totals had they turned out. I heard a fellow from Duncan call Mike G's show and state that he didn't vote because it doesn't matter. It does matter, especially in local elections. He also needs to be thankful he has the right to vote. It is a privilege. He also has an obligation. There have been many times I've had to hold my nose and vote for who stinks less, but I always do. When we pledge to our flag, we pledge to be a good American. A good American always votes and does what is within their power to help the country. He should be ashamed of himself. Now the good news. We had 3 first-time young men voters, where are the girls, she says, and 1 inactive voter return for the first time since electronic voting. Well, you know, there's always... You can always find something to be encouraged about, Katrina. Appreciate that report from a Duncan precinct. Yes, again, it was disappointing. And especially in times that we're living in right now, to see such a low number of people turn out. Again, I get back to that should be a challenge to each of us. If you're listening to my voice right now, we have to work hard to get people to the polls in November. Maybe some people just don't think that the primary part is that important. But surely they understand that come November that they have to go vote. With some of the things that we're witnessing right now, some of the things that we're experiencing. Our text of encouragement today from Joel. Remember that guy who gave up? Neither does anyone else. God bless. Thank you, Joel. Your comments are welcome as well. Text them to me on the text line. Email them, joey@joeyhudson.com. Quick thing from last week. I talked with you a bit about going to the news conference for the Law Enforcement Appreciation Day that will be coming up in September, and you'll be hearing more about it here on this show. It's a day that we will recognize. We'll feed law enforcement officers in Greenville County breakfast and give them a lot of gifts and just show our appreciation for them. We had a news conference this past week, and 6 of the K9 units were there because we were sort of spotlighting what these K9 units do. And I have just really become intrigued with the whole idea of these K9 units and how the bond that is developed between these dogs, and they're working dogs, they're very serious, and their handlers, the emotional attachment that is between them. Sadly, this past week, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office said their farewells to retired K9 after posting a video in his honor on Facebook. According to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, 13-year-old K9 Dooley, who served for 9 years before retiring, was diagnosed with cancer. During Dooley's 9 years of service, he deployed 1,647 times. Listen to this. He assisted in 862 arrests. He seized over 200 pounds of narcotics and $850,000 in the sale of illegal drugs. I would say Dooley did his job, didn't he? Sadly, Dooley had to be put down last week. Veterinarian professionals advised that Dooley be put down to relieve his pain from the cancer. Greenville County Sheriff's Offices said their goodbyes this past Thursday. I had the chance to meet last week K9 Officer Echo, Remy, Ron, Flash, along with some other K9 units. These were Echo, Remy, Ron, and Flash are with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. We had a couple other K9 units from other municipalities around the area as well. You can find those on my Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, search Joey Hudson, and you'll see a video that I did of a couple of the K9 units. We have to support the sheriff's offices and all of the police agencies who have these. You may have heard also that last week a K9 that was assigned to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, a SLED K9, was shot and killed. But these K9s, first off, they're expensive because of the training, but they're a vital part of these law enforcement agencies. And they don't get a lot of funding for it. So if you have the opportunity to do something to help raise money for a K9 unit, please take advantage of it. That's it for today's show. Up next, the Tara Show, followed by Mike Gallagher, 10 till noon. Bill Frady takes over at 12. Charlie James will get you home this afternoon, 3 to 7. Mark Levin will wrap things up. We're back again tomorrow for your first cup of coffee at 5 a.m. for more of Sunrise Carolina. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and we're going to win in the June primaries, and if we're going to win in November especially, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece.